Hey guys, it's me, Helena, and welcome back to my channel. If you don't know me, I'm a relocation astrologer specializing in the astrology of place and location. And if you've been following me over the last year here on YouTube, you have seen my recent predictions for the astrology of this election, the presidential election of 2024. If you've watched my first video that I made a year ago in September of 23, I made a video about Donald Trump and the future of the United States with the Uranus return that starts in 2025. This is a once in an 84-year cycle that will be happening next year. It's a really big deal, and Trump's birth chart is very much connected to it. In the last 5 or so months, you will have watched videos where I have compared the charts of Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. And from those two comparisons, I have predicted that Kamala Harris would become the next president. I know, we look at the news, we look at the polls, we look at what just happened literally last night. Who won the election? Donald Trump won the election. But I am very cautious of what's happening right now due to the upcoming retrogrades. Specifically the Mars retrograde that is hitting Donald Trump's Saturn and Venus in the 12th house. Oh, one second, I got room service, 1 second. Okay, I'm back, sorry about that. So there's gonna be a Mars retrograde. Mercury's about to station November 25th, but it will enter shadow on November 7th, right around the time when Mercury is opposing the United States Uranus, right, which I mentioned in my previous video. I am not how do I say this? I am not taking anything at face value until I see who becomes the actual next president, who is sworn in as president, who is inaugurated, because of the Mars retrograde, which is really affecting Donald Trump's chart in the 12th house, and this Mercury retrograde, Mercury entering shadow a day, 2 days after the election. I was wrong in that I thought Kamala Harris would become the president, but I thought that there would be delays with the voting and the count of the voting. I was wrong about that. And I have said, I have to say this because there have been so many people. I've gotten so much hate, so many mean comments, so many DMs, and I'm Helena effing Woods. I can take anything. Feel free to lay it on me. I can take it. That's why I'm literally here live on this planet, on this internet. Like, put all your projections on me as much as you want, I can take it. But I have to say, the amount of criticism towards astrologers who did not get the 50-50 prediction right is really sad. And there are astrologers out there that are dividing us and are just not nice people out there. And I feel like I woke up with like an illusion shattered. We're gonna get into the astrology of all this, and we're gonna talk about Trump's winning at the very beginning of this whole series on political astrology. I made a video a year ago in September 23 about Donald Trump. You can check it out here, I'll include a link. Talk about Donald Trump and the United States with the Uranus return, which starts next year. Donald Trump's chart is very striking for all of this that we're about to go through in the world and in the United States as a country. The foundation of the country is going to change. Things will be changing, whether it's civil revolution, civil unrest, whether that's an external war with a different country, right? Whether that's massive changes in the foundation of the country. The US is going through big changes. This is a once in an 84-year cycle, the Uranus return. We also have huge other things that are happening. Pluto in Aquarius, Saturn and Neptune in Aries. We have a lot going on. And Trump's chart is very much in alignment with that and connected to the story of this transit for the United States birth chart. I also said in that video, and I've said in multiple videos, that he is entering the peak of his life starting in April 25, and that he's got massive transits going on right now. And I've also said many times that it will be a close call. It will be tight because both Kamala Harris and Donald Trump have very strong charts right now. They have very strong charts. But I want to show you the astrology for Donald Trump. I'm going to move over here so I can pull up a chart right here. Jupiter is on Trump's Sun and North Node in Gemini. This is success. This is achievement, this is accomplishment, and most importantly, this is the turnout from his followers. The 11th house is the house of your fan base. Who follows you? Who supports you? What are your followers like? Who are they? You can learn a lot about your friends and your community by looking at your 11th house. He has his sun, his north node, and his Uranus. They are a powerful signature in his birth chart. He's a powerful chart. And you can't deny that Donald Trump is a very powerful person, resilient, a striking birth chart. But that Jupiter, which happens once every 12 years, this transit happens. Jupiter, which is abundance, growth, and expansion, is hitting his sun, which is his shining, in the 11th house of the followers and the fan base with the north node of increase. The north node is volume up, turn up the dial all the way up. That's the north node. The fact that Jupiter hit the sun and the north node and Uranus, which Uranus is a big transit, which we'll get into that in a second, all in the 11th house of the fan base shows he has massive support, like cult-like following right now. Huge. The turnout for this election was massive. He won by a landslide. Okay, so let's take that into consideration. And I've mentioned this over a year ago, so you can go watch that video if you want to see it again. The other thing is he has Uranus on his midheaven right now. It's within a degree. Uranus is retrograde and it's on his midheaven. Your midheaven is your reputation. It's the point of your career. And those degrees are very, very sensitive. They move 1 degree every 4 minutes. So the fact that Uranus, which is a huge, generational planet, it's an outer planet, the fact that it's hitting his career point, which is very sensitive by degree, this is big things happening in career, changes in career, unsettled things in career, unexpected things in career, but big things. People can have a lot of success when you have a big outer planet transit to your midheaven degree, right? So looking at his chart, as I've said many times in previous videos, this is a very striking, powerful chart. And when I compared it to Biden's chart, I said he would absolutely win. And the story in connection with the United States Uranus return in the United States Sibley chart shows there's a connection with this story. I've also said if Kamala Harris becomes the next president, Trump's not going away. Trump is not going away because his story, whether that's him or his legacy, his message, what he stands for, is a part of this cycle of revolution and change and all of this that is happening starting next year in 2025. What else is really big about his chart? The fact that he's entering the peak of his life in April. April 2025, he begins the peak of his life starting then. The last time he had a peak period on a level 1 using zodiac releasing was 1973 to 1980. That was the last time he had a peak. And let me see if this is the biggest peak. I'm not sure, let me check. Wow, yeah. And this is the biggest peak of his life too. He had a peak in 73 to 80, those 8 years, 7 years, but that was a minor peak period. This peak period that's coming up starting in April of next year is the biggest peak of his life. So, and I've actually said that. If you check out my piece in The Economist, I was recently featured in The Economist. If you go, I mentioned in this piece in The Economist, I mentioned that, he's entering the peak of his life. You can check out this piece. I'll include a link down below if you want to read the article that I was featured in. So, there's a lot of success here, guys. This isn't an easy thing to read. I thought Kamala Harris had the advantage, the slight advantage over Trump. But regardless of that slight advantage, Trump's chart is still powerful and striking, especially with the times that we're heading into 25, right? So, want to just mention all that. Now, some things I want to mention about this election and what I'm expecting going forward. I am waiting because we have Mercury entering shadow on the 7th. November 7th, Mercury enters shadow at 6 degrees Sagittarius. If you have any mutable placements at 6 degrees Sag, or mutable placements at 6 degrees, or you have any personal planets at 6 degrees Sag, this is going to be very important for you. When Mercury enters shadow, that is an important kind of like an exclamation point or a start of a beginning of a story. Let's call it that. It's the beginning of a story. Now, this is what's really important. When that Mercury enters shadow on the 7th at 6 degrees Sagittarius, that's gonna be an important key time to look at, because that Mercury will station retrograde on November 25th. Slow down. It's gonna go back. Still in Sagittarius, but it's gonna go back to that degree of 6 degrees Sagittarius. Mercury will then station on December 15th, and then it will officially leave shadow. It will exit on January 2nd. So I want you to keep these dates right here, okay? In your journal, get out your calendar, write this down. Enters shadow on November 7th, stations November 25th, stations again direct December 15th, and then Mercury leaves shadow on January 2nd. Those 4 dates: November 7th, November 25th, December 15th, January 2nd. Those are 4 key dates for this Mercury retrograde. What is Mercury retrograde? It's redoing things, miscommunication, issues with technology, re-looking at things, okay? Now, this is why it's even more important than any normal Mercury retrograde. We also have a Mars retrograde at the same time, okay? This Mars retrograde is really, it's tense because of the Pluto opposition. And it's tense because it's going back into Cancer in its most fallen position. Now, this Mars retrograde is a slowdown of action, of delays, and it can bring a lot of frustration amongst the people. Now, this is important for this election because it's affecting Donald Trump's chart very personally. Donald Trump is a Leo rising, so that Mars retrograde is going through his house of self, and then it's hitting his Saturn and his Venus, and his Venus is the planet that rules his career, his 10th house. When Mars transits Saturn in a retrograde, there is a weird stop, a slowdown. Now, the thing I am concerned about is, do we hear about it? Why? Because this is happening in his 12th house of hidden things. When we have transits going on in the 12th house, the public doesn't know about it. The public doesn't see what's happening in the 12th house, right? It's private. It's behind the scenes things. It's hidden enemies. It's hidden things going on behind the scenes. That's the 12th house. The fact that Mars is going over his Venus, which rules his career, and his Saturn, which is a big challenge or slow down or stop or needing to redo something, makes me think that there is some sort of challenge that he's going through. And when is this happening? This is December 6th until February 23rd. That period right there, there's a slowdown and it's affecting Trump's chart. January 6th is the day that Mars will enter Cancer at 29 degrees, the critical degree of 29 degrees. That point is exactly in a square to January 6th from years ago. There's an exact square. Mars was at 29 Aries on the day of that whole event. So we're seeing similar themes. Mars-Pluto oppositions are not easy. They're great for ambition, but when Mars is retrograde, there's just this sense of like being really fed up and frustrated by something. And that is why, regardless of who won today, that we just found out about, this landslide, I'm an astrologer sharing the data. I have my Mercury in Gemini. I'm giving you the cold, hard facts. I'm not giving you any emotional bias. Just because you haven't met someone, an astrologer or anyone in your life who can look at facts and details and relay information from an objective perspective and not have emotional sway or a bias towards it, just because you haven't met someone who's like that doesn't mean they don't exist. So many people are so connected to their emotions and so tied to their emotions that they're not able to like see things objectively. And the astrologers that I follow that I love are the ones who are like able to just say things matter of fact and look at things, right? All right, gosh, sorry about that again. It has been nonstop errands, appointments, people messaging me all day long since I woke up. So sorry about that. Okay, there are people out there who can look at charts objectively without a bias. Just because you haven't met an astrologer or someone who can detach from their emotions, detach from their emotional bias and just read something matter-of-factly doesn't mean that they don't exist. I'm able to remove myself and look at things objectively. And it's just interesting how many people have attacked me today, thinking that I have a bias and that's why I predicted Kamala Harris. You don't actually know my political affiliation. I also want to remind you that Mars officially leaves shadow May 2nd. This is a long story, guys. These next 5 months are gonna be interesting to watch in terms of what are we redoing? What are we relooking at? What are we reevaluating? You know, you might be feeling like there's a slowdown in your life on something. When we get into December 6th, 7th, there's gonna be a real slowdown because Mars will station retrograde then. So, so these are the key dates to pay attention to. Those 4 dates for the Mercury retrograde, relooking at things. The Mars retrograde, especially December 6th to February 23rd. And it's really interesting, on the day of January 6th, Mars goes back into Cancer and makes that 29 critical degree, which is actually forming a square to the insurrection on January 6th years ago. It's interesting. It's interesting patterns. It's interesting to look at. We are entering big years starting in 25. And I've said this a million times, I'm not gonna repeat this over and over again, but with Trump, if Trump is president, again, I'm not saying he's gonna be president until I see who's actually gonna be president, because there could be a switch. There could be some sort of change that happens once we get into the new year and in December, okay? Wait, just wait. Because the astrology does not look simple. It does not look smooth. It does not look simple. And so just wait to see what's happening in December, what's happening in January. If Trump does become president, we are in for some wild years ahead, because his peak begins, and it's challenging for him. Again, I want to remind you guys, his peak is the most challenging period for him. Now, could that be he's leading the country through war years and they're hard for him? Yeah. Could it be he's making big changes in the US that are huge and historic and he's getting a lot of pushback and a lot of like issues are coming up for him? Yes, right? These are challenging. I also want to remind you that a challenging period can be uncomfortable for you. It's a period where there can feel like a sense of dis-ease or unease, right? So even if he's in the peak of his life starting next year, is he just stressed out a lot? Is his health declining, right? Like these are some things to think about when he enters his peak starting in April. Looking back at the transits, as I've mentioned in many times in previous videos, Trump has very successful transits right now. And it connects really strongly with the United States chart, the Sibley chart, with the Uranus and Gemini. He's got his Uranus in Gemini. There's a lot we can learn from this. As astrologers, there's no better time like the present to learn astrology, because we're watching the news and the events of this historic time, these historic years that we're stepping into. This is such a great time to be an astrologer, to learn from the transits and to observe and study this. And I will say, I really recommend watching this video by S.J. Anderson. I'll include it linked down below in the link, but he made a video that really spoke to me the other day about how, like, is it for the best and highest good for astrologers to be making political predictions like this, to be saying who's winning and who's not? And it really got me thinking. And it made me kind of like have a hard look in the mirror, honestly, of like, is this for the best and highest good as astrologers to be doing this kind of stuff? I have to say, I follow my gut and I trust myself. My gut told me to post that Donald Trump video a year ago. My gut told me to post that final predictions video recently, predicting that Harris would win. I have made all of those videos because my gut and my intuition told me to, and I trust myself 100%. But I have to say, I've also grown an audience here on YouTube that is more hurtful and cruel and mean. And part of me logically regrets getting into political astrology, because the amount of people who actually don't know what astrology is. You don't know what astrology is. You don't know what it can do. And I just think I've been exposed to an audience, some people, not all of you, a lot of you guys are great. I found a lot of community and audience that's wonderful, but today I've had to hire someone to go through my comments and delete hateful, cruel rhetoric from this YouTube channel and block people, because I've been exposed to an audience that I don't think I ever would have if I hadn't started making political predictions. And I don't regret doing it. I don't, because I trust myself. And I also love politics. I've always been interested in politics since I was in high school. But there's a reason why I left the United States years ago. I don't align with the country. I think there's a lot of corruption on both sides. And I've said that many times, but people still think I have a bias or still think that I'm emotionally, I don't know, one side or the other. I moved to France for a reason. I don't believe in the two-party system. But it's interesting how I have grown an audience here on YouTube that is so either extreme one or extreme the other. And we've forgotten how to be kind to one another because of that. Like, we've forgotten to connect and form community with one another as astrologers. And I made those videos for astrologers, for astrology learning purposes, and those videos just took off on a life of their own and got tons of views and all this. I was not expecting that at all. In fact, I would rather not have all those views and actually have those views on the work that I'm really passionate about, which is astrocartography and relocation astrology, which is my specialty. Like, God, I wish I had the views on those videos and not the political ones, but what can you do? That's just life. Sometimes life, flows something your way and you just have to move with it. And sometimes fate happens and it's really not a matter of control on your part. You just have to flow with it. But I do want to acknowledge that I was wrong. There was an astrologer today who posted something. This person was the first astrologer I ever followed when I was in high school. I was 16 when I got into astrology. And this YouTuber, this astrologer, I used to watch all the time. Astrologers are fighting each other now. We're about to enter such a divided time coming up, and it's already happening. And I'm worried about Neptune and Aries. I really am. I think there's going to be massive fights between the astrology communities, sidereal zodiac or the tropical zodiac, whether it's whole sign or Placidus. I just think, I've got an icky feeling in the pit of my stomach, and it was really disheartening and sad and disenchanting and just overall oh my God, an illusion was just shattered of an astrologer that I've looked up to for years and I've supported them. I bought their, I've subscribed to their thing, so I'm giving them money I don't even watch their videos at all. I like this person, and so I wanted to support them, and to see them cause divide amongst astrologers in the community. That's not what astrology is about. Astrology is such a fringe thing. We should be lifting each other up and supporting one another, considering how many people are anti-astrology. We should be helping one another and inspiring and encouraging one another and say, oh, you got it wrong, that's okay. That's all right if you got it wrong. Instead of supporting witch hunts. So all of this to say, I'm going to be keeping a very close eye November, December, and January and seeing what is going on with this Mercury retrograde and this Mars retrograde. If nothing happens and Trump gets sworn in as president, wow. I don't even know what to say. I would be shocked. But these are the months to really pay attention to, okay? If you are feeling the call to get the F out, if you're feeling ready to leave the country, leave the United States, if you want to move states, if you're thinking about going to a different state and you're ready to move, definitely check out my upcoming class. My live astrocartography class is coming up this Sunday. I don't do a lot of live classes often, but when I do, they're inspired by something that's happening. And I was inspired over the last 2 weeks by so many of you who are ready to relocate and move abroad. And so I made this workshop for you. It's going to be live this Sunday, November 10th. You'll get the recording and have access to it forever. If you can't make it live, you'll get the video recording and all of that. No expiration date. You'll have it forever. For the lowest price it will ever be, the price will go up on Saturday. So if you did want to secure your spot and learn about where you can move, what are the best places to move using mapping, astro mapping, and relocation astrology, definitely sign up below in the link in the description. I'll include it down here. Doors close. The price will go up on Saturday. So if you do want to get your spot, don't forget that. But I'm going to be teaching you everything. If you're a beginner to this and you want to find the best places to move, if you want to learn about ways that you can start the process of moving abroad, if that's something you desire to do, I'm going to be teaching you all that in the workshop. So all that said, have a peaceful day. Take care of yourself. Drink lots of water. Eat. Please eat. Eat some food, even if you're feeling a little on edge today. If you're celebrating, congratulations. And if you are having a hard day today, just take care of yourself and remember that all of us, regardless of our political beliefs, we are together. We are human beings on this earth. We must not forget connection. We must not forget love. We must not forget kindness. Let's not forget that in this divided world that we're in. All this said, I'm gonna be posting more astrocartography content, probably a lot less political videos because geez, I have been exposed to an audience that I wish I never got. So there's that. Peaceful rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next astrocartography video. Bye.